I never thought I'd rescue a lost girl, only to discover she's a billionaire's daughter. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was like the universe had decided to spin me into chaos. The rain was coming down hard, each drop a little shard of ice piercing my skin. My heart raced as I stumbled onto the muddy path, searching. I had never felt so lost, so desperate. The air was thick with tension, and the storm overhead roared like a wounded animal. That's when I saw her, a silhouette huddled beneath a tree, shivering, her long hair plastered to her cheeks, glistening like molten gold against the gray. I hesitated. Was she a mirage? But as I moved closer, I saw her wide, terrified eyes. They were a stormy blue, reflecting the fear that rippled through the heavy atmosphere. It was then that I knew something was deeply wrong. Are you okay? I managed to choke out, my voice cracking. She didn't respond, just stared at me with those haunting eyes, trembling. I reached out, feeling the heat radiating from her body, and instinctively pulled her close. My heart felt like it was bounding out of my chest. Who was she, and how did she end up here? Please help me, she whispered, and I could barely hear it over the thunder. Those words hung in the charged air, heavy with meaning. I felt the lump in my throat grow. Her fear was palpable, a living, breathing entity pressing against me. I nodded, though I wasn't sure how I could help. As I wrapped my arms around her, a sudden crash lit up the sky. For a brief second, everything went bright. In that moment, I saw how fragile she looked, all alone against the world. My mind raced. Save her. Protect her. But from what? The storm or something darker? When I finally got her to a safe spot, my mind whirled with questions. Who was she really? What had she been running from? I didn't know it yet, but this encounter would unravel everything I thought I knew about life. The weight of silence hung between us. Unease settled in my stomach. Then, her voice cut through the noise like glass shattering. I can't go back, not now. What could have terrified her so deeply? Just then, the sky opened up, soaking us in a fresh wave of rain. I could feel her body shake against mine. Panic flooded my veins. I needed answers. I needed to understand. But I had no idea that as I grasped her hand tightly, trying to pull her out of the storm, she held secrets that could change everything. Secrets that veiled her world from mine. And just as the clouds parted slightly, revealing a sliver of light, she whispered something that almost shattered my heart. You don't know who I am, do you? My breath caught in my throat. What did she mean? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain poured with a relentless intensity, the world around us a blur of gray, as I struggled to comprehend her words. You don't know who I am, do you? Each syllable felt treacherous, laden with unspoken histories and secrets so heavy that they threatened to swallow us whole. I pulled her closer, feeling the frantic rhythm of her heartbeat against my chest. What do you mean? I managed to stammer, still grappling with the fact that I had found myself entwined in the life of a girl who is not only lost but evidently running from something far greater than the storm. As her eyes widened, flickers of fear danced across her face. My father, he's not just a businessman. He's dangerous. He has enemies, and I can't go back to that life. The air between us crackled with disbelief. I could almost hear the thunderous echoes of her past resonating between us. We can't stay here. It's not safe, I said, suddenly hyper-aware of our surroundings. The woods felt alive, shadows lurking just beyond the reach of the flickering light that managed to pierce the thickening clouds. Wait! She pulled back slightly, slipping from my grasp. If we leave, he'll find me. Her expression darkened, the glimmer of hope that had sparked between us dimming almost instantly, swallowed by the enormity of her fear. Who? Your father? You can't mean yes, my father. He has people everywhere, and they'll do anything to bring me back, she interrupted, her voice cracking under the weight of her confession. I could see the tears pooling in her eyes, and every instinct urged me to soothe her. To wipe the despair from her face, I took a deep breath, grounding myself in her fears. So we need to hide, then, until we figure this out. But where? She looked around, the rain still pouring and the world seemingly closing in on us. I don't know anyone here. My family owns a small cabin not too far from here. It's mostly abandoned, only the occasional deer hunter might pass by. It's our best shot, I suggested, trying to mask my uncertainties with a brave smile. Her brow furrowed. I could see the indecision scrawled across her face, fear wrestling with trust. But after a moment of silence, she nodded, the fight in her eyes dimming to a flicker of hope. We dashed through the storm, the world wrapped in a shroud of water and shadow. As we moved, I felt another layer of connection with her, a shared mission that somehow forged our fates together. Every rustle of the leaves, every rustling twig made her flinch, and with each step, I vowed to protect her, to keep whatever threat looming over her at bay. After what felt like an eternity submerged in the rain-soaked chaos, we finally stumbled upon the old cabin, its structure worn but steadfast against the elements. Inside, the air was thick with dust, remnants of memories clinging to the walls. I quickly found old blankets stacked in a corner and wrapped her in one, watching as she shivered noticeably less than before. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I could tell she was trying to keep the panic buried beneath the surface. I was supposed to be at a charity gala, not hiding out in some cabin. Things don't usually go as planned, do they? I said softly, hoping to lighten the moment, acknowledging the absurdity of our situation. Do you think someone like you, someone with more money than they know what to do with, would ever imagine being in a place like this? A ghost of a smile flickered across her lips before being replaced by a weightier thought. No. But it seems that money can't protect against everything. I could feel the heaviness of truth in her words, a somber acknowledgement of her reality. And yet, in that fleeting moment, I also sensed a shift to recognition of our shared human experience amid the chasm of our lives. Just as the clouds seemed to relent, allowing scattering rays of moonlight to pierce the darkness, she looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw clarity in her gaze. Maybe you could help me figure this out. You seem different. Before I could reply, a sudden crash exploded outside, followed by laughter wild and manic. My heart dropped. The sound was like a knife slicing through the fragile thread of calm we had managed to weave. I think they found us, I whispered, my throat dry with alarm. Her eyes widened, threading panic through the safety that had just begun to bloom. What do we do? There was no time for anything other than instinct. Stay here. Lock the door. I need to check. As I moved toward the window, every muscle in my body coiling tight, I could feel her desperation merge with my own. We hadn't spoken about tomorrow, or what would happen if we survived the night. In that small space, bathed in moonlight yet thick with threat, I realized that the path ahead was far more convoluted than any of us could have imagined. All I knew was that I had to protect her. But though I hadn't yet allowed myself to think about how deep this all could go, I felt the stirring of emotions within me that had been kept silent for too long. Before I reached the window, a name slipped from her lips, a name that tugged at the frayed edges of my mind. Elliot, you have to promise me, but I didn't need to hear more. The laughter grew louder, and in the next instant, the door surged open, crashing against the wall as shadows loomed over us. I turned, ready to fight, but the words she had almost spoken echoed hauntingly in my mind as the reality of our situation came crashing down around us. Elliot, I heard again, just before the darkness swallowed the light. The darkness loomed oppressive, the air thick with a mixture of fear and unbridled chaos. I could barely make out shapes as they moved into the cabin, the shadows stretching unnaturally, exaggerating the threat they posed. I instinctively stood in front of her, blocking her from view, but even I felt my heart race in the face of the unknown encroaching around us. "Who's in here?" A voice boomed, deep and harsh, slicing through the tension. The figures began to take shape, cloaked in shadows and menace, their intentions as dark as the night that surrounded us. For one brief second, I allowed myself to glance back at her. The look in her eyes was a mixture of fear and something else, a fierce determination that I hadn't seen before. "Stay quiet," I hissed, forcing a calm into my throat despite the chill creeping through my veins. I couldn't let this moment unravel, not now. The lead shadow stepped forward, a glimmer of metal catching the light. "We know you're hiding someone, and we know you're not going to stop us." There was a terrifying confidence in his voice that shook something deep within me. I took a step closer, each move more calculated than the last. "You don't want to do this," I warned. The words tasted bitter, the gravity of the situation sinking in. The thrill of heroism was gone, replaced only by desperation. A sudden crash echoed from outside, and for a moment, the group froze, all eyes darting towards the door, and that was my chance. I lunged forward, ready to tackle the man closest to me, but the element of surprise was short-lived. He easily sidestepped, and in a flash, I felt a strong grip around my arm, spinning me around like a rag doll. "Stop." Her voice rang out, fierce and clear, eclipsing the moment. It was the eternal cry of someone who had discovered an inner force, no longer a frightened girl, but a woman ready to reclaim her life. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice tinged with confusion and awe. "I won't let you hurt him," she exclaimed, standing tall. The shadows assessed her, uncertainty flickering across their faces. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Her words fell like a stone into still water. They rippled through the tension, creating a moment of pause. But then the lead man laughed, a sick, twisted sound that sent shivers racing down my spine. "You think that'll protect him? You think your daddy's money can save you?" I felt her flinch at the mention of her father, and I stepped closer, trying to shield her from both her fears and theirs. With every breath, I could sense her resolve, but it was contagious. I could feel it igniting my own courage, a flicker of hope breaking through the despair. "Maybe not," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "But let's find out just how far I can go to protect what I care about." I watched as she reached into her pocket, fumbling out something that glinted wickedly under the dim light, a sleek, silver device. Suddenly, she hit a button, and the cabin filled with a piercing siren, so loud it was deafening. "What the?" the leader yelled, his face etched with disbelief as chaos erupted. It took only seconds for me to understand her plan. The siren, a security alert linked to her family's network. The echoed call screamed for help, and it jolted me into action. "We have to go," I shouted, grabbing her arm. But before we could make it to the back exit, the group rallied, scrambling over each other amidst the chaos, and I felt something sharp slice through the air, hitting my shoulder with a blaze of pain. I stumbled, the shockwaves of the blow rattling my insides. "Elliot." Her voice pierced through the haze of fear, her eyes wide with horror. "I'm fine," I lied through gritted teeth, trying to push through the disorienting wave of pain. I could see the terror etched in her features, and with a surge of adrenaline, I pulled her toward a side window, desperate to escape the mess we found ourselves in. Just then, another figure stepped forward, this one different, a woman with a calm, fierce look in her eyes. "Enough," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos with unwavering authority. My instincts kicked in, and I pressed back against the crumbling wall, the pain in my shoulder momentarily forgotten. "Julia." The lead shadow turned to her, a mix of awe and anger swirling on his face. "What are you doing here?" Her eyes, sharp and piercing, held no room for deception. "I'm saving you from your own stupidity. The boss wants her unharmed. You don't want this fight. Back down now." Behind her, the lurking shadows hesitated, unsure of the unfolding dynamic. But Julia's presence felt like a golden ray breaking through stormy clouds, and I cautiously pulled back from the window, waiting for the storm within to settle. "Run!" Julia yelled at us, her voice slicing through the air. Suddenly, I felt the grip of fear and the need to protect coiling tighter than ever. But moving meant leaving uncertainty behind, moving towards something far more daunting and unknown. Without thinking, I took 2 steps back, wrapped my arm around Julia's shoulders, and looked into her eyes, those hauntingly beautiful eyes that had shimmered with vulnerability, but now glowed with a fierce fire. "Stay close," I said, mastering my fear. But as we began to slip through the side door, the laughter from the shadows crescendoed, and I knew this was only the beginning. As we dashed into the outside chaos, drenched in the rain once more, it struck me. ID signed up to protect her, but now she was the catalyst for everything I didn't know I feared. As we ran into the darkness, I felt a profound sense of loss and realization crash over me. ID thought I was saving a lost girl. Instead, I might just be unleashing something far beyond my control. And as we tore away from the cabin, the truth began to unfold, twisting like the trees around us, thorns that would soon entangle us both as the night deepened. And above all, a memory stirred within Meth, name she had mentioned before the darkness swallowed the light. What had she wanted to say about her father? That thought lingered, unanswered, as the night screamed into the shadows following us. As we sprinted away from that cabin, my mind raced with a chaotic dance of danger and disbelief. The rain poured like a relentless barrage, each droplet blending into the wild rhythm of our pounding hearts. Julia clung to my side, her breath shallow yet determined, matching mine step for step, as if she could sense the uncertainty curling around us like smoke. "Where are we going?" she shouted, her voice barely rising above the cacophony of the storm. "Two don't know," I replied, scanning the misty landscape that loomed ahead of us, shadows weaving in and out of the chaos. "But we can't stop. We need to put distance between us and them." I struggled to keep my footing, each step painful as awareness of the wound on my shoulder throbbed like a muted drum. "Let me see," she insisted, pulling to a halt only momentarily as she slid her hand under my arm, assessing the damage. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," I bit out, the grit of my teeth acetone on my resolve. But when she glanced up, the concern in her eyes shot straight through any armor I tried to project. The vulnerability reflected back at me was a reminder of the emotional compact we were forging, a connection born in fear, laced with a burgeoning trust neither of us had anticipated. "Not nothing if it's bleeding," she whispered, unbuttoning her coat and wrapping it around my shoulder. The gesture caught me off guard. The warmth of her touch displaced the chill in my bones. "We need to get somewhere safe, Elliot," she urged, her voice softer now. "Do you know of a place?" I asked, realizing she was the one with the knowledge of this town, the elite corridors where her father's influence spread like fine silk. "In the woods, there's a cottage my family owns. It's secluded," and her voice trembled slightly as she halted, squeezing my arm tightly. "But I haven't been there in so long." "Then we'll make it," I affirmed, determination flooding back into my bones. I inhaled deeply, steeling myself against the surge of adrenaline coursing through me. "Lead the way." With newfound purpose, Julia guided us through the underbrush of the surrounding grove, each branch an obstruction that seemed to develop personalities of their own, reaching out as if to snare us in their grasp. Our progress was slow and fraught with hesitation. Every rustle in the dark not only ignited fear but left trails of haunting memories lurking behind me. "I can't believe this is happening," she muttered, her voice quivering with the weight of something far more profound than mere disbelief. "I spent so much time trying to escape my father's world, and now I'm back in the thick of it." "It's not over yet," I reminded her, tight-lipped and pushing through the winding path. I felt the weight of her world against my shoulder, balancing on the cusp of uncertainty. Focus on what's ahead, one step at a time. But the further we ventured into the wild, the more I could feel the grip of panic seeping through her resolve. "What if they find us?" she whispered, her breath hitching. "Then we'll fight," I replied, though as the words left my lips, a sliver of doubt wormed its way into my resolve. "But I don't think they'll come. Julia, if they wanted to catch us, they could have done it back there. They were playing with us." She nodded, but the shadows cast by the trees mirrored the uncertainty in her expression. Just as I inhaled to reassure her, I heard Ida's distant growl, a low rumble that rumbled like thunder through the damp air. My heart dropped. It was more than footsteps. It was a hunting pack, and they were closing in. "Run!" I commanded, urgency spilling from my lips. We sprinted deeper into the woods, branches clawing at us, the underbrush lashing against our shins as we sliced through the darkness. I and the chaos. Her hand slipped from mine, the connection severed in an instant. I twisted around, panic flaring as I scanned for Julia, only to find her stumbling, arms flailing blindly. I charged back. "Julia, help!" She cried out as the ground beneath her shifted, tired roots betraying her footing. I lunged, catching her wrist just as she fell. My shoulder screamed in protest. But adrenaline surged through my veins, a fierce heater, pushing us to battle gravity itself. When I pulled her back up, we locked eyes, hers wide and glistening with fear, yet there was something else simmering there, something fierce I hadn't seen until now. Our hands clasped tightly, now more than a lifeline. It was a silent promise, an acknowledgement of shared vulnerability, and the weight of our predicament wrapped us tighter again. "I'll never be able to repay you for this," she breathed, clutching my arm, her eyes searching mine as if pleading for reassurance. "Just keep moving," I urged, but the urgency in her gaze pushed me to reveal a part of myself I'd kept locked away. "You're stronger than you know, Julia. You're not just a lost girl anymore. You're fighting back." Before she could respond, the rustling intensified around us, a swarm of shadows closing in from behind, guttural whispers weaving through the air. I felt our sanctuary evaporate, leaving only the biting reality of our situation. "Elliot," she gasped as I turned, the sound of the thundering chase surrounding us. But before we could continue, a sudden figure emerged from the trees, an unexpected silhouette that pulled us both short. Stunned, I instinctively stepped in front of Julia once more, prepared to shield her with everything I had, but it wasn't one of the men from the cabin. Instead, it was someone I could never have anticipated seeing here, in the depths of the woods, when we all but expected the grotesque shadows clamoring behind us. "Margot," I breathed, recognition dawning, a blend of relief and confusion washing over my senses. "What are you doing here?" Julia exclaimed, dismay and hope battling within her voice as if they craved to flit and nestle within her heart. Margot stepped forward, and for a fleeting second, her warm smile broke through all the darkness that hunted us like prey. "I came for you both. I had a feeling you'd need help." But something in her expression shifted, a shadow flickering behind her eyes that didn't align with her words. And for a heartbeat, I realized the truth might be as tangled as the very woods that ensnared us. "Margot," I hesitated, senses heightened. "Something's not right." "How did you know we were here?" She hesitated, and the very air throbbed with tension. The unspoken truth twisted tightly around us, and I couldn't shake the growing apprehension that perhaps we were not as safe as we hoped. The embrace of the night felt horribly deceiving, and just then, a series of flashes cut through the trees, a piercing beacon of lights that wound towards us like the sharpening blade of a knife. My heart raced anew as the very real question clawed through me. Was Margot truly here to save us, or had she come to seal our fate? The night dropped its veil of uncertainty as clearer memories rushed back, beckoning memories that held the harsh reality of the world we had once known. As the shadows erupted into the clearing from behind, I could only grasp tighter to Julia's hand, the truth teetering on the brink of revelation, and the moment felt like an avalanche tilting into the unknown. The air thickened as the headlights sliced through the underbrush, illuminating everything with a stark, unnatural brightness. I squinted against the sudden glare, searching for any sign of hope within this relentless storm of dread. My heart thudded loudly in my ears, the impending sense of doom wrapping around us like the creeping fog that gathered in the night. "Elliot, we need to move," Julia urged, panic etching deeper lines in her face. She pulled on my arm, her grip tightening, as if I were the only tether keeping her anchored. "Wait," Margot interjected, stepping forward with an urgency that belied the calm mask she wore. If you just trust me, but trust had become a currency I was terrified to spend, especially when Margot's arrival felt like an omen rather than salvation. You shouldn't be here, I said, the bitterness in my voice cutting through the confusion in the air. Why did you come? I heard the whispers, the rumors of what was happening. I was worried, she began, her eyes flickering to Julia, a hint of something fear passing through the facade. But we can't stand here. They'll find us if we don't move now. A shiver ran through me as her words wrung clarity from the fog of fear that dulled my senses. Margot wasn't the only one endowed with privileges. She had been privy to all the darkness hiding beneath the surface of her world. The idea that she had come seeking us out, dangerously aware of the risks, forced me to confront a question that gnawed within. Was she trying to help, or was she entwined deeper in the web that had ensnared Julia? Then lead the way, I relented, already feeling the pull of danger edging closer, the growl of the hunting pack echoing reminders of our vulnerability. As we sprinted through the shadows, adrenaline surging came with bursts of warmth from the bonds forging between us, yet the uncertainty coiled tightly around my heart. Margot led us through the darkened trees, her silhouette aflicker against the glowing backdrop of headlights that threatened to spill our secret. Julia remained close beside me, and I could feel her unease radiating off her in waves. Elliot, she whispered, her voice tremulous. Do you think we can trust her? The moment hung suspended, and I could feel everything, the weight of Julia's fear, the vulnerability in Margot's hurried steps, the haunting shadows reaching out toward us like fingers curling in desperation. I don't know, I replied finally, forcing the words through my tightened throat. But we don't have many options. We followed Margot as she wove expertly through the labyrinth of the woods, our escape laced with doubt and a flickering hope that perhaps safety lay ahead. Still, the headlights pulsed through the trees behind us, disrupting the thicket with a violent insistence that every moment could be our last. Without warning, Margot halted, turning sharply towards us, her hand striking out fiercely in a protective gesture. This way, she hissed, pointing to a narrow path that cut through tangle and bramble. It's a shortcut to the cottage. We can lose them. The urgency in her voice propelled me forward, yet a tiny voice in the back of my mind screamed to hesitate. Margot's eagerness felt as much a trap as it was a lifeline. We plunged down the narrow trail, branches slashing at us as the light from the hunt behind flickered against the fog. Stay close, she commanded, glancing back over her shoulder. Just a little further, my heart raced, every beat echoing against the growing silence around us, mirroring the way fear ebbed and flowed in my chest. Julia's hand squeezed mine tighter, and for a moment, that small connection dulled the jagged edges of uncertainty, lending me strength. There, Margot shouted unexpectedly, pointing ahead where the outlines of a dilapidated cabin began to materialize through the dew-laden air. It's just up ahead, but as we drew closer, the sense of hope collided with dread. The cabin appeared worn and weary, like a specter lumbering toward us. Windows were shattered, and the roof sagged precariously, but there was no time to analyze whether it was safe. Go inside. Quickly, Margot urged, practically shoving us through the splintered door as the cacophonous sounds of engines and barking dogs crescendoed behind us. We squeezed through, heartbeats racing in unison, encased now in a cramped silence that felt overwhelmingly heavy. Once inside, the three of us stood still as statues, straining against the silence. The room felt cold and damp, capturing all the insecurities swirling in the air. Each breath echoed, and I could see the exhale of Julia, a quivering cloud dissipating before my eyes. Elliot, Margot said, her voice dampened with urgency, we have to barricade the door. Before I could respond, Julia interjected, Margot, why are you helping us? I need to know. This doesn't make sense. Her question hung like a sword, threatening to slice through the tenuous threads binding us together. Margot's eyes flickered, revealing a flash of something I couldn't place in, uncertainty that mirrored my own. I did this for you, Julia, she confessed, biting her lip. For the both of you. I can't let them hurt you. I thought coming here would help. The wave of tension swelled as reality sank in. Help us how? I pressed, suspicion coating my tongue. What do you mean? Before Margot could reply, a crack echoed through the room, deafening in the quiet. We all turned toward the door, the sound of splintering wood and the encroaching pack filled our ears. My heart raced, pounding now in a vicious rhythm shared with the encroaching storm beyond. This isn't just about the two of you, Margot finally whispered while the shadows converged around us, drew tighter, and I felt that same oppressive weight return. There are things you don't understand, things that go beyond what you think you know. The door buckled, jolting us into action. Our sanctuary was about to reveal itself as a trap, and I could sense the truth teetering on the edge, threatening to plunge us into deeper chaos. As she spoke, another crushing sound echoed from outside above the thrum of my pounding heart, and the very ground beneath us quaked. As Margot's gaze locked with mine, I saw something in her eyes, a mixture of fear and something else, maybe regret, that I couldn't decipher in that moment. And before I could voice my next thought, the door swung inward, and the darkness exploded into the sanctuary we thought we held, pulling us into the heart of the storm and leaving us teetering on the brink of the unknown. The chaos of the cabin erupted like a storm breaking the stillness. With a grunt, the door flew open, an inconceivable force pushing through the creaking wood. As if to mock the sanctuary we hoped to find, a figure stood silhouetted against the chaos outside, eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger, silhouetted by the ruthless headlights still prowling like wolves in the night. I instinctively pulled Julia behind me, feeling her warmth press against my back, a reminder of everything I was fighting for. Margot reacted with a sudden burst of resolve.
"Get back,"
she shouted, stepping forward as though she could shield us with her very presence. "Move aside," the figure commanded, voice a lethal whisper that cut through the urgency. There was something about Ida familiarity that chilled me to the bone. I was caught in the web of conflicting emotions, a push and pull of instinct and instinctual loyalty. Julia's breath shuddered against my shoulder. Margot moved closer to the figure, and just like that, I was struck with a spectral echo of the past. "Liam," Margot said, her voice trembling. I caught a glimpse of her vulnerability through her bravado. "Why are you here?" she demanded, though perhaps it was too late for questions. I could sense the shifting tides. We were precariously balanced between fear and revelation. Liam's eyes glinted with a mix of delight and mischief. "Because this is where the story gets interesting," he replied, taking a step forward. He traced a finger along the edge of the door, and with that simple gesture, the memory of his face, familiar yet maddeningly detached, pricked at old wounds inches beneath the surface. "Do you honestly think you can run from this?" he continued, a smile creeping across his face that twisted my gut further. "It's bigger than you can imagine, Margot. It's about time you understood that." "What are you talking about?" I interjected, trying to regain control over the spiraling narrative.
"Who are you?"
Liam chuckled, a low sardonic sound that echoed ominously against the walls of our sanctuary. "Now that's the question, isn't it? But I'm more curious about you, Elliot. You've become quite the pawn in this game of kings." The weight of his words staggered me, and I felt the icy tendrils of doubt thread through my insides. What did he mean? What game? "Enough," Margot shouted, realigning the shifting focus. "You're not going to use us like this. Not anymore." Yet, as she spoke, there was a flicker in her countenance, a moment of weakness that I caught in her eyes. Shadows reverberated around us, oscillating with the aura of something larger than our immediate conflict, and I couldn't help but notice the tension that vibrated between Margot and Liam, a tension steeped in history. "I asked this about the money?" Julia asked, her voice steadying against the chaos, brave but fragile as she stood beside me, holding on as if we were bound together by the very air we were breathing. "Is that what brought you here, Margot?" "Julia, just listen." Margot's voice broke slightly, her earlier bravado faltering. "You don't understand. How could you put us in this danger for something that might just be a game?" Julia pressed, earnestness flaring like a candle in the dark. "I came to help you," Margot exclaimed, desperation creeping into her voice. "I thought you'd be safe here and I'd lead you to the truth." But before Margot could elaborate, Liam cut in, his demeanor shifting to predatory. "The truth? There's much more at play than what you think, Margot. You know exactly what you're involved in. Tension crackled like electricity, and I wondered just how deep Margot had been drawn into this labyrinthine mess, how that jealousy mingled with allegiance. I could feel Julia's turmoil beside me, a reflection of the unease flooding my veins. Just then, the sound of barking dogs punctuated the charged air outside, a reminder that our time was fleeting. The pack was pacing closer, their approach bringing a cacophony of chaos that loomed over us like an unwelcome visitor. Liam's smile widened, genuine delight painting his features. "This isn't over," he warned, every syllable cloaked in menace. "This is just the beginning of your descent. Trust me, I wouldn't want to spoil the fun." Suddenly, the shadows beyond us surged, the pack about to thrust into our fragile haven. Margot's sudden resolve pulled me from the spiral of uncertainty.
"We need to escape now,"
she shouted, her voice cutting through the tension, rallying us into action. But as we turned to flee, the unsettling truth tumbled into the space between us. With every passing second, the layers of betrayal and unresolved conflict pressed heavier upon my chest, shaping the crisis we were embroiled in with each shifting alliance. And as Liam stepped back, a bear track rapidly revealing within the baffling shadows, I realized that uncovering the truth would cost us more than we had ever anticipated. The only certainty was the urge for survival and instinct that pulsed between us even as the answers remained dangerously out of reach. Before we could fully process what lay ahead, the darkness erupted with uncanny ferocity, and I knew no matter where this journey took us there would be no turning back. The cabin's air thickened, weighed down by the threat of what lurked beyond the door. With the barking dogs closing in, panic threatened to overwhelm my senses. Margot's shout propelled us into action, urgency knitting itself through our hurried breaths. We darted towards the back exit, the faint glimmers of hope flickering as dimly as the lights in the cabin. Julia clutched my hand, her fingers trembling. The warmth of her grasp intertwined with the chilling anticipation that knotted my stomach. "Elliot, where do we go?" she asked, her voice little more than a whisper, tremors of fear shaking it. "Follow me," I urged, pulling her along. Margot hurled open the flimsy door that led to the back porch. The forest loomed ahead, dark and foreboding, a temporary refuge if only we could reach it before the chaos consumed us. Just as we scrambled over the threshold into the clutches of the night, Liam's derisive laughter pushed through the doorway, curling around us like smoke. "You think you can just run? The game has only begun." Blinded by urgency, we melted into the deep shadows of the trees. The sounds of the dogs' barks booming, growls echoing fueled our flight, each step pounding against the forest floor like a heart racing under duress. I glanced back, caught a glimpse of the cabin stark in the moonlight, Liam's silhouette framed against it, a specter of everything we wished to escape. Margot led the charge, urging us deeper into the woods, whippets of her own memories fueling each quickened stride. "We have to find a spot to hide," she urged, her voice firm yet laced with trepidation. A part of me wanted to hone in on her urgency, to vibrate with the determination she displayed. But another part, one burdened with the weight of revelations about the past, tried to wrap itself around the unfamiliarity. Was she truly leading us to safety, or had she once again transformed herself into the architect of our peril? "A spot," Julia repeated, desperate. "We need cover. We can't let them find us." There was something brave, something raw, in her fear. It sent spurts of adrenaline racing through me, urging me to stand beside her. As we forged hastily through the underbrush, branches snagged at our clothes like the fingers of the past clawing at my thoughts. I wanted to comfort Julia, reassure her that we were not alone, but the specter of my own uncertainty gnawed at me. Almost as if sensing my turmoil, Margot paused, her breath heavy. "There." She pointed to a thicket, a cluster of dense undergrowth that could conceal us, wrap us in a cocoon of disbelief and protection. We squeezed inside, bodies cramped and hearts pounding in sync. The darkness enveloped us, and for a brief moment, the chaos receded to mere background noise, just the rustle of leaves, the shifting silhouettes outside, ignited by the light of the distant cabin. Breathing felt easier, but the walls of responsibility wrapped tighter around me. "What's going on, Margot?" I asked, urgency slipping into the corners of my voice.
Why are you involved with him? Who is he really?
Margot remained silent for a long moment, her hesitation palpably a darkness threading through the air, a string of secrets wrapped tight under her skin. "I made mistakes," she finally said, the words tumbling out filled with guilt. "I thought I could handle it, but it's bigger than me. I didn't want any of this to reach you." "What do you mean?" Julia pressed, her eyes wide with confusion and fear reflecting my own.
He was a part of my past.
A part one thought I could escape. "But he knows everything, my weaknesses, and that puts you in danger." Her gaze faltered, a flicker of shame that reminded me of the righteous anger simmering beneath the surface. "I thought I could protect you both. Instead, I've led you into a wreckage of my own making. I can't even feel safe with you here." I snapped, fury erupting as tension swirled around us. "You were supposed to help us, I know. I thought I could. I thought I had clarity," she lamented, frustration abounding in her tone. "But I should have known that this would end badly before she could finish." A shrill bark cut through the air, cruel and ominous sound closer than it had ever been. My heart plummeted as reality crashed down like the branches surrounding us, each jarring strike revealing our blaring vulnerability. "She's right, Margot. We're in danger because of you." Suddenly, there was a rustling, a snapping sound near our hiding spot. Julia gasped, instinctively pulling closer to me as I froze, a primal urge rising inside. We had no choice. Whatever was out there was unwelcome, approaching with unrelenting certainty. But in that danger, a different sound brought us to collective attention, a snap of a twig, one I recognized above all else. A figure emerged silently, stepping into the shadows, face obscured, alluring and shadow-bound. As the moonlight caught a glimpse of the intruder, a chill coiled through me. It was Hera, familiar phantom rising from the ashes of my past. "Why did you run?" she whispered, voice a haunting echo from my darkest memories, sending the world spiraling anew. And just like that, every ounce of resolve buckled as I stared into the eyes of the lost girl, with the sudden wonder of discovery threading between us. She was more than just a long-lost secret. She was a revelation I never expected, and in that moment, everything changed. Everything hung precariously in the air, my heart caught between the repeated cycles of fate and choices still veiled beneath darkness. The air thrummed with impossibility, each beat echoing a haunting presence that sent electric shivers down my spine. There she stood, the girl of my past, lost yet familiar, her eyes glinting in the dim light like shards of glass refracting layered history's memories, dreams, regrets. "Why did you run?" she repeated, her voice fragile but resolute, almost imploring. The moment was a fragile glass orb, pregnant with unsaid words and unresolved emotions, and I could feel the weight of it shatter against the rocky terrain of my heart. "Akira," I murmured, the name slipping free like the breath I didn't know I was holding, a whisper that felt like both an offering and a betrayal. "Is it really you?" "Yes," she confirmed, her expression softening for a fleeting moment before the mask of urgency returned. "But we don't have time for this. You have to trust me."
Trust.
The word rang hollow within this chaos, each syllable weighed with uncertainty. I glanced over at Margot, her expression a blend of guilt and disbelief. The shadows clung to her like a second skin, each fracture in her posture speaking volumes about the burdens she carried. "Trust?" I echoed, my voice heated. "After everything that's happened? Is that even possible?" But I could feel Julia's hand tightening around mine, urging me to consider. Despite the fear writhing inside me, there was an ember of hope flickering. This unexpected reunion painted in shades of salvation and impending doom. "I know what Liam is," Akira continued, her voice dropping like a weight to blend with the night air. "He's not just a threat to you. He's tangled deeper in this game than anyone realizes. He's after something bigger, something untouchable." My breath hitched. "What do you mean?" "The fortune, Elliot. My family's fortune. It's the key to something he wants. Something about power. She hesitated, the words fishing up a coil of fear in her crimson-stained eyes. When I heard he was back, I knew had come for me, too. I thought I could escape, but running isn't enough. The revelation struck me like cold water, splashing against every assumption I'd ever held. Akira, the lost figure of my past, had been running, not just from Liam, but an inherited legacy that loomed darkly over her head like an inescapable storm cloud. "We have to leave now," she urged, darting glances into the darkness that wrapped around us. "If he's coming for you too, we can't stay still." I opened my mouth, wanting to voice the doubts crowding my mind, but Julia interrupted. "Where are we supposed to go?" "He'll find us anywhere, not if we use the network," Akira replied, glancing over her shoulder into the depths of the woods, her voice suddenly surging with confidence. "I've got contacts, people who can help. We can disappear, but we have to move quickly." Margot stiffened at Akira's words, her face flushed with recognition, an unsettling familiarity washing over her. "And how do you know we can trust her contacts?" Her skepticism simmered in the air, a tension wave that seemed to unsettle the surrounding shadows. "Because they are the only hope I have left." Akira's voice cracked, her certainty wavering just enough to show vulnerability wrapped closely beneath her toughened exterior. "And for you too." For a moment, we all hung in uncertainty, the dark wood whispering our doubts. It would have been all too easy to reject her suggestion, to shut down the pathways coursing through our minds, but beneath that darkness lay a glimmer. If we were to survive, we needed to act together, however fragile that unity felt. Margot swallowed, a resigned acceptance shifting in her stance. "All right, I can't stay here with you, knowing that Liam is hunting you down." "But I don't trust her." "I won't ask you to," Akira interjected softly, her gaze steady, anchoring as the fear in her eyes flickered dimly. "But I know what I'm putting on the line, and I will fight to protect you if you let me." My heart twisted in uncertainty. Everything about this situation screamed of lies and potential traps, and yet beneath it all, there was a haunting ache laced with possibility, a chance for redemption buried under layers of pain. But just as I opened my mouth to give my decision, a familiar growl ruptured through the stillness of the woods, freezing me in place. The dogs had drawn closer, their barks echoing through the thicket. "They're coming," I shouted, panic clawing at the back of my mind. "Run," Akira urged, her voice fierce, igniting an instinctual fire within me as she kicked off from the thicket. We bolted into the cover of trees again, heartbeats syncing with the frantic rhythm of the chase. We fled farther into the depths of the forest, breathless under the weight of our footfalls, a scuttling whisper of hope igniting with each motion. Each turn yet doubt lingered like a serpent in our midst, and just when I thought we might break free, a sharp yelp echoed above our frantic rush, followed by an eerie silence that gripped the woods, punctuating our urgency with dread. "What was that?" Julia gasped, freezing in her tracks, eyes wide as she scanned the tree-line. I turned to follow the others, but an unseen shadow seemed to loom closer, a presence I felt culling the air around us. "We have to keep moving," I stammered, seizing Julia's hand tighter. But as we pressed on, another sound shattered the momentous scream, piercing and agonizing, splitting the darkness with familiarity and fear. "Margot!" I yelled, a sickening dread unfurling in my core as we turned to see her silhouette crumpling beneath a new menace, frayed in absolute terror. We faltered, our footsteps halting as the horror unfolded before us. Liam appearing at the edge of the moonlight, shadows dancing across a smirk, a dark puppet master poised to ensnare our every thread. "Did you really think you could escape?" he taunted, each word heavy with malice, enacting a grim theater anew. "Welcome to the final act of this game." As the truth unfurled, I could already feel my choices crystallizing into inevitable destruction, fate revealing its hunger, and every ounce of hope hollowing with the depths of his monstrous laughter. The forest trembled with Liam's laughter, a cruel mockery that slid beneath my skin. Margot lay limp on the ground, the chill of reality crystallizing around us, swallowing whole the flickering embers of hope. Julia's grip on my hand tightened, her breath quickening as she processed the enormity of the situation. Akira's expression shifted from urgency to a tempest of emotions that I couldn't decipher: fear, rage, determination. "Margot!" I shouted, stepping forward despite the instinct telling me to flee. Liam's presence shimmered with threat, enthralling and terrifying, casting shadows that loomed larger than the night itself.
"Ah, Elliot."
"Such bravery," he sneered, shifting his gaze to Akira. "And I see my dear lost girl has returned to the fold. How quaint." "Let her go," Akira commanded, stepping forward, her voice steady but underscored by a shaking vulnerability I had never witnessed before. The fire in her eyes flared, illuminating the coldness of her fear with an undying resolve. Liam seemed to bask in her defiance. "Why would I do that? You all seem to have such delightful ideas about escape and freedom, but the truth is tethered for you here." He gestured to the darkness, "and the longer you linger, the deeper you fall." I forced my eyes away from Margot's crumpled form, searching for a way out, for some kind of leverage against the monstrous man who loomed over us, cloaked in cruelty. "You don't have to do this," I offered, my voice trembling only slightly. "We can talk this out. You don't have to hurt anyone else. Talk?" He laughed, eyes narrowing. "Oh, Elliot, we've surpassed that point, haven't we? It's amusing how naive you still are, even after all this time." He leaned slightly, a sinister glimmer creeping into his gaze as he fixed it on Akira. "You must know by now. Nothing of mine will slip away so easily. Let her go." I shouted again, but it echoed hollowly, drowned by the dread that twisted in my chest. "Margot deserves better than this, Liam." Akira's voice held a unity both fierce and desperate. "She deserves to be free. Freedom comes with a price," he retorted, releasing a chuckle that wrapped around us like a suffocating shroud. "And you should know that best, my dear Akira." Dark memories flickered like shadows in my mind, shades of the past that whispered of betrayals, of choices that led us to this moment. I felt Julia's fear intertwine with my own, the weight of our reality pressing down upon us, a cacophony of impending doom intruding upon every fleeting thought. "Please," I urged, hope straining against the reality of despair. "If there's a part of you that still remembers her, let her go. This isn't worth it." His eyes flicked with amusement, yet in them, I saw a flash of something raw, his hands clenching into fists at his sides, as if wrestling with remnants of a deeper conflict. "And what would you offer in exchange, Elliot? A fleeting promise?" "You don't have that kind of power." Had I end that moment, an idea sparked, reshaping desperation into a hesitant confidence. "What if I give you what you want instead? The fortune, Akira's fortune." I breathed the words carefully, hoping that they would find purchase. "It'll help you get it. Whatever it takes." Akira's voice faltered, a whisper meant only for me. "Elliot, don't," but he had already seized the opportunity, eyes lighting up with vicious delight. "Now that's a tempting offer. You would sacrifice the last of your dignity for a taste of survival?" "I'll negotiate," I persisted. "It'll help you navigate through whatever shadows you think you can command. Just let Margot go." "And what if I find this offer unworthy? What recourse will you have then?" He replied with a smirk, unfurling a threatening presence that amplified my pulse. Margot stirred slightly at the sound of my voice, a flicker of recognition igniting something desperate, but the moment was swallowed as Liam leaned down, his gaze piercing through her at me. "Your empathy is charming, but it won't save her. You'll need to do far more than barter with words if you're serious about protecting anyone here." And just when I thought his manipulation couldn't deepen, he stood, tall, surveying the tightening tension, reveling in the agony he wrought. "If you say so, then let's raise the stakes of our little game, shall we?" Before I could respond, he gestured toward the woods behind him. Silent figures emerged from the shadows, eyes glinting in the dim light, familiar shapes forming under the canopy of darkness. My heart plummeted. They were his links, his allies, each a brick laid upon the foundation of dread. "Liam," Akira's voice broke slightly, the intensity of the moment crumbling her facade. "You don't have to do this. Don't be naive," he hissed, his demeanor shifting to the predator that he was. "It's already too late." Everything pivoted within me, And for that brief moment, the world narrowed down to the creased tension between us, boiling with potent anticipation, the inevitability of danger settling like a weight on my chest. As screams melded into the rustling trees, chaos broke out, the silhouettes weaving closer, taunted by shadows that would force us into the bleak depths of what was unsaid. "Margot!" I yelled again, but Liam clutched her as if she was a pawn to be shifted within his grasp, playing a game I refused to accept without a fight. A burning realization ignited my senses, triggering nerves woven tightly into the fabric of this nightmare. A single thought cut through the haze. Was my betrayal to Akira the only way out of this? Would I truly risk everything for a lost girl living under the weight of her legacy, knowing it might lead to our final descent? Liam's cruel smile promised an endgame where hope didn't exist, and I felt the time of reckoning approach, a choice that would ripple through the very fabric of our lives. And just as the night began to close in around us, a shocking revelation burst free from the shadows. The figures from the trees weren't just allies of Liam. A flash of recognition gripped me, a name echoing against the backdrop of impending doom. One of them stepped forward, fear igniting in their eyes, not Liam's puppet, but an old friend. Someone who could tip the scales in ways we hadn't prepared for. Yet. "Elliot," they called, desperation and urgency threading through the soft gasp that intertwined with the throbbing chaos. But with shadows closing in, only one certainty remained. The stakes had never been higher, and the next move could set off a chain of consequences that would forever redefine our fragile reality. It felt as though the world stood still in that heartbeat, all noise swallowed by the frigid air that hung heavy with uncertainty. My eyes locked with that familiar silhouette, recognition spreading like wildfire through my heart. It was Alex, my childhood best friend, someone I had thought lost to the tides of life in the years when everything began to fracture. "Alex!" I shouted, disbelief at the edge of hope spilling over the tension crackling in the air. Was he somehow here, after all of this? Was this a cruel turn of fate, or had I finally harbored an unexpected ally? I could feel the weight of danger pressing down around us, tangible and suffocating. The murderous air danced around us, caught like a fly in a spider's web, and Liam's mocking gaze flickered in our direction. A reunion. How heartwarming, he taunted. But you're mixing with past lives, Elliot. Past lives that are now very much aligned against you. Get out of here. I shouted at Alex, my heart racing, torn between loyalty and desperation. This isn't safe. You don't know what you're walking into. But Alex was unyielding, stepping forward past the shadows that whispered warnings, face taut with determination. I know exactly what I'm walking into, and am not leaving without you. The realization surged through me, an overwhelming tide of emotions. Alex had always been there, through thick and thin, a spirit unbending and brave, but this night wasn't about the innocence of our past. It was tangled in the complexities of betrayal and dark secrets that wanted to consume us whole. Liam's eyes narrowed, a predatory glint igniting. Adorable, he scoffed. A little reunion won't save you, you fool. Teams like yours just make for amusement watching as you scramble against each other in the tide of the storm. The others behind him shifted at that, mirroring the anticipation wrapping tightly around my throat. As tension mounted, I felt the weight of promises unspoken. The memories of joy shared with Alex twisted into barbs of bitterness. How did we arrive at such a moment where shadows loomed over friendships, loyalty intertwining with danger? In that pulsing heartbeat of chaos, it struck me. Friendships can be both armor and chains, something that binds you too tightly and still offers shelter amid the storm. Let her go, Liam, Akira chimed in, her voice steady, yet the tremor of fear was palpable. We know more than you think. Bravado. It's captivating, really. Liam chuckled, and it sent shivers racing down my spine. But let's take a moment to unwrap the tangled web you've woven. You, dear Akira, have brought them all right here, right to the brink of obliteration. So, what shall we do now? Time felt suspended as the air crackled with impending ruin. And then, with clarity igniting within, I made a choice. Enough. I pushed through, trying to gather broken pieces of determination. This moment wasn't just about betrayal, it was about fighting back against a fate that seemed scripted for our demise. "Well, fight together." Julia breathed, worry threading through her voice. "What are you doing?" I squeezed her hand tightly, steadying her beneath the storm of our predicament. "Trust," I said, finding courage woven in the certainty of our bond, despite everything we faced. "This isn't just our fight anymore." "It doesn't have to be." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, spine-chilling and thick with urgency as Liam's laughter bounced off the walls. My vision narrowed, focusing on Alex, who subtly nodded a unison of mutual understanding sparked between us. "Then let us end this," he said, and the conviction in his voice laced through my veins, breathing life into the prospect of a revolt against the dark forces at play, and with that signal igniting all of us, the fear that had encased my heart shifted into a fierce determination. We were backed into a corner, but corners were meant to be escaped from, not places to crumble beneath despair. "Get ready," I shouted, my voice rising above chaos. "We can't let him take any more from us." The group surged forward, hearts pounding against the dangers lurking within the shadows. Liam grinned, a satisfaction swirling wild and vindictive. "You really think you can take me down? It's almost amusing." "But let's put that to the test." He lunged forward as adrenaline spurred action, and in that instant, the forest erupted, barks erupted, and shadows fell heavily. We pushed forward, ready to claim our fate and break free from the oppressive weight of the night. Margot garbled a faint cry of protest from the corner, and even as fear flickered, something inside me ignited a longing to protect her, to serve justice while reclaiming lost parts of my own soul. I couldn't give in to the fear woven into the night. I had to redefine our narrative, charging forward. I felt the pulse of our united strength against the encroaching darkness. We moved as one, syllables and breaths mingling into an anthem, a battle cry birthed from chaos. And then it happened. The moment crystallized before me, a shift. We fought against the chains tied around our fate, against the shadows that had chased us relentlessly. To save Margot, to save each other, it was about reclaiming the truth buried beneath the weight of secrecy, beneath the darkness pulling and tanging at us. Whatever sacrifices were necessary, we would face them together. With every jolt, every pounding heartbeat, realignment began to shift. Friendships once frayed by distance resurfaced, connections drawing us together in refusal to break. I turned, finding Julia's fierce gaze beside me, a reminder that light rippled even through the murkiest of waters, and just as our determination converged, I caught another flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. The spectral shadow shivered, and Liam, in a moment of assumed triumph, faltered, leaving a crack in his own facade, too late to protect what he once wielded. We surged forward, drawing strength from one another, breaking the cycle of darkness that had forged itself within those haunted memories. The night spiraled into a whirlwind of evasion and truth, and as I glimpsed at those I fought to protect, tears pricked my eyes, a swirling mix of vulnerability and resolve. And when we finally screamed our way through to the other side, emerging out of the darkness like the dawn returning, the full weight of love and hope wrapped around us, the final breath in the lingering chaos, anchoring us against the tempest within. Together, I breathed, lifting my chin, feeling solid ground beneath my unsettled heart. In that moment, under the remnants of chaos, we bound ourselves together anew. We could not rewrite the past or hide from it. We would simply transcend it, hand in hand, choices trailing behind us like phantom whispers in the dawn. And that dawn, after all the pain and deception, unfurled like the blossoming possibility of a new beginning, a circle formed within our very hearts strong enough to withstand whatever darkness came next, for we had risen from it all. The final word caught in my throat as I turned to face the impending horizon and whispered a truth I could finally own, a promise that would carve our futures against the shadows that chased us. This is our story now.